Well, hello, it's good to be with you. Welcome to Food News and Views on the Television Food Network. I'm Bill Boggs, sitting in for David Rosengarten.
And I'm Gayle Gardner, once again sitting in for Donna Hanover, and thanks for joining us.
Now, topping the news today, the Food and Drug Administration this afternoon wrapped up its three-day conference on the health effects of antioxidant vitamins. The federal agency appears to be one step closer to declaring officially that antioxidants do play a role in reducing the risk of cancer and other diseases. Vitamin C, E, and beta-carotene are collectively known as antioxidants. The purpose of the conference, to determine if there is currently enough evidence to conclude that foods rich in these vitamins will indeed reduce the risk of cancer and cardiovascular disease in animals and humans.
The good candidates are vitamin C, vitamin E, beta-carotene, other carotenoids. Whether these are borne out sufficiently by the data to warrant a health claim is something we're trying to ascertain.
We want to judge the science in order that we can provide information to the consumers that they will be in a position to improve their health.
The conference included information and research from biochemists, epidemiologists, and other scientists who have been studying the effects of these vitamins. The overall goal of this conference is to afford the FDA the power to advance a health claim that would link antioxidants to preventive nutrition.
Formally, we have approved a health claim that talks about the benefits of foods that are high in beta-carotene, vitamin C, and the possible relationship with cancer, as an example. There is a fair amount of evidence that suggests that what's in the foods that has this positive benefit are the antioxidant vitamins, and that's the reason for this conference.
Now, the antioxidant health claim is actually 7th in a series of 10 proposed health claims outlined in the National Labeling and Education Act of 1990. While the evidence has not been properly evaluated as yet, the FDA officials seem confident that the antioxidant nutritional claim will be advanced.
All right, well, joining us on the phone from Washington is Dr. Elizabeth Yettley, who was on the FDA Advisory Board and was responsible for setting up the conference this week on antioxidants. Welcome, Dr. Yettley. First question, of course, is what makes you absolutely certain at this point of the health value of antioxidants?
Well, I think as was indicated earlier, we're just right now in the process of examining the scientific issues. So we haven't reached a final decision yet, but this conference was a big step towards getting a good review of where the science is at the current time.
Dr. Yettley, this is Bill Boggs on the line from the Television Food Network here. There are still many in the traditional medical establishment who kind of put up their noses at the claims behind a lot of vitamins. What is it going to take to convince them and the AMA?
Well, we have a standard that we have to meet, and that there is there's significant scientific agreement among experts qualified. That doesn't mean that everybody has to agree with that, but it does mean that we have to have a sound base of science to support a claim, and that's exactly what we're in the process of doing right now, is to review that science base.
How close are you?
We have reopened our comment period on this particular topic area, and those comments will close in the middle of December, and at that time we'll look at the comments we've received, we'll look at the transcript that we got from the conference this time, and sometime after that we'll make a decision.
Okay. If you do come out and support this claim, how will that affect us? For example, how will it affect labeling?
If we were to authorize a claim, then manufacturers could use that claim on foods or dietary supplements that would contain a minimum amount of the nutrients that would be specified by the claim. And so consumers then could identify foods that were meaningful sources of those nutrients, and they would also have some information about the nutrient disease linkage right on the food label.
What would the verbiage read?
I couldn't say until we'd made the decision of whether or not to authorize a claim.
Okay. Could you give us a rough idea, perhaps?
I can give you an example of some of the others. We have one, for example, that links diets low in fat to a reduced risk of cancer, so the claim could read something about diets low in fat may reduce the risk of some types of cancer. Cancer is a disease caused by many factors.
Okay.
Dr. Yetley, thank you very much. One last question. Right now, approximately, one estimate is about 30% of the population is taking some form of antioxidant. Do you expect the events of the conference this week to have an impact, an immediate impact on that?
I wouldn't have any idea. I think the industry might have a better answer than I would have on that.
And any basic idea on when all this may happen?
In terms of the decision?
Yes.
We have an open comment period until the 13th of December, and so we would have to have time after that to review all the comments and to go back and look at the meeting transcripts, and then we'd make a decision sometime after that. So.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Yetley. Thanks for being with us. Well, still ahead on Food News and Views, more on why antioxidants are beneficial. In tonight's Rhubarb, our food fighters debate whether the customer is always right. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
If you're the customer.
Absolutely. And in our new product segment, we will get the skinny on yogurt. And in our cookbook corner, add some spice to your life with some Creole cooking. We'll be right back. Well, today we are focusing on the antioxidant conference in Washington and the role these vitamins play in reducing the risk of cancer and cardiovascular disease. And now joining us in the studio to tell us how and why these vitamins are beneficial is Dr. Howard Greenspan, a free radical researcher and the clinical director of Pharmacon USA. Two terms we have here, okay? Free radicals and, of course, the antioxidants, the relationship. It's technical.
Well, free radicals are substances in the body that are formed as a result of normal body metabolism of oxygen. Could be things like hydrogen peroxide, hypochlorous acid, hydroxyl free radicals. Basically, these substances are essential for normal body functioning. But if they get out of hand, and if they're not kept in check, then they cause excessive oxidation of certain types of tissues and certain types of structures within individual cells. So antioxidants basically protect us from the negative effects of free radicals.
What is the body's natural way, without necessarily an abundance of antioxidants, to protect against free radicals?
Well, the body has its own system of antioxidant mechanisms. It uses the vitamins that it finds in our food, and it has a series of enzymes within each cell and outside of the cells, which actually what we call scavenge the free radicals.
At this point, based on the level of scientific information we have, what do you think the most realistic word is that can describe the value of these antioxidant vitamins as well as antioxidants that appear in food?
How do they help us?
What's the most realistic word today, based on the research that's out there, to describe their value?
I think they're extremely valuable. And not only, I mean, we've certainly over the years, and I've been working in this field for about 16 years now, we've seen their potential value in cardiovascular disease. And of course, we talk about their value in protecting us from cancer. But in reality, free radicals play a role, I think the evidence will bear out, in most degenerative diseases, such as arthritis. They play a role in neurological diseases, such as multiple sclerosis. And next week, I'm putting on a conference at the National Institutes of Health, looking at the role of free radicals and antioxidants in HIV disease.
Go over, once again, what the antioxidants are and what each of them does.
Well, as we know them, the most common ones that we know are beta-carotene, vitamin C, vitamin E. And those really just act as our first-line defense against free-floating free radicals, as I might use the term. But each cell individually has, as I said before, its own series of enzymes that are the real key elements for protecting us against free radicals that are formed within the cells.
Now, how will these help us? What are we talking about in terms of the kinds of illnesses that these will work against?
Well, research is, and there's quite a bit of research coming out now, and that's why there's so much interest, that significant differences can be made in the incidence of heart disease, or people who have heart disease. There can be a significant change in the incidence of heart attacks secondary to heart disease.
Based on both diet as well as taking vitamins and supplements. I'd be very curious, for a man who's been working in this field for 16 years, you look very healthy. We haven't spoken at all before the show. What do you take?
Well, I might add, as a comment to that, of course, free radicals and oxidation are considered to be potentially key elements in aging. In fact, when you have food that goes bad or goes rancid, it's the action of free radicals and oxidation.
You're going to tell us
I'm 94 years old.
The 1,000-year-old man, right?
That's right.
So what do you take? I mean,
I have particular interest in certain types of antioxidants. I take vitamin C, and I take vitamin E, and I take beta-carotene. And this is not meant as a panacea for other people, because
you're an expert.
I think everybody's an individual.
And what else do you take?
I take a lot of bioflavonoids and what we call a general family of substances called polyphenols, which we find in Japanese green tea and Chinese green tea. But I think the flavonoids, which not a lot of people pay attention to, are being shown now to have a very significant role in cardiovascular disease, cancer, and HIV disease.
Explain flavonoids to us.
Well, flavonoids are nutritional substances that are found in fresh fruits and vegetables, and probably the highest concentration are in citrus-type fruits, more specifically in the rinds and the roughage portion of the fruit. It's just that we don't get enough of those just by squeezing the juice and drinking the juice.
What do you think the final outcome will be of the FDA conference that wrapped up today?
And actually, I know a number of the biochemists who are testifying, and some of them are coming to the conference at the NIH next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I think the evidence that's coming in is overwhelming. The studies coming out of Harvard, the studies coming out of Scandinavia, the significance that this has in reducing heart disease and potentially for reducing the recurrence of cancers such as breast cancer and lung cancer.
The studies have been going on for many years, for 2 decades. Why are we suddenly now jumping on this now? Why not 10 years ago?
It's a very interesting question. Free radicals in oxidation medicine, because they stress the use of vitamins and minerals and food supplements, were basically contrary to the ongoing trend in mainstream medicine for many years. It's only in the last 5 to 8 years that all these studies have started to really be taken on by major institutions such as Harvard University.
Doctor, if this means that new labeling information is going to be provided, what is that actually going to mean to the consumer who's looking at products on the shelf and taking the time to read the label? Is it going to be more confusing or easier?
Well,
now they're reading fat grams already, so.
It depends upon how they do it, and I hope that they take into account just what you're asking, you know, that people can get confused by too much. I mean, we say we're in an information highway, and we have too much information, we don't know what to do with it. Hopefully that labeling will take into account just coming down to basics and not making excessive amounts of claims which tend to put people off to extremes that they don't need to be taken to.
Let me ask you something about the antioxidants. We're talking about things that they can prevent. Can they reverse damage?
That's a good question, and that's one of the things that we're looking at in HIV disease, because if I might digress for a minute in that area, because it's an area that I think is very relevant to our current health concerns. It appears as though the virus that causes HIV disease and AIDS has a mechanism to shut off the body's production of its own antioxidants, and thereby leaving immune cells susceptible to the harmful effects of free radicals. So if we are able to supplement antioxidants back in, we may be able to allow the body to start reestablishing its own mechanisms of defense. And in that way, to answer your question, we may be able to reverse a situation that's on a downslide.
Dr. Greenspan, I'm curious that you are a clinical director of Pharmacon. I'd be curious to know what, if any, vested interests your company has in the marketing success of these antioxidants.
Well, I'll clarify some. And I work as a consultant of Pharmacon in this area of antioxidant activity because Pharmacon's approach is the use of herbal-type medicines for cardiovascular disease, and right now they're looking at a substance to be used in HIV and AIDS. And the idea is, if if we look at the reality of what's out there in the world and look at the plant kingdom, because plants manufacture oxygen in their own leaf cells, they actually need the highest level of antioxidant protection of any organism. And we're starting to learn a great deal about how plants utilize a multitude of antioxidants in a synergistic manner to protect them from stresses. And that's why we think that looking towards plants for some answers, we smart humans might learn a little bit.
Will your company be selling any products related to these findings?
Pharmacon, as it stands right now, is bringing a product through the FDA process for new drug investigation to be using it as a prescribed medication for AIDS.
For AIDS. About 20 years ago, there was a lot of interest in talking to your plants. Now the plants are talking to us.
Hopefully they'll tell us something that we'll listen to. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Greenspan.
My pleasure.
Very interesting information, and we will be following this, obviously, on the Television Food Network. Thank you. Coming up in our new product segment, new trends in yogurt, from crunchy to sweet. It used to be nutritional, now it's actually fun, too.
Very colorful, right? Do you remember when yogurt was plain and dull? Well, now food companies have developed yogurt with granola, sprinkles, jimmies, some people call them jimmies, and even chocolate-flavored crunchies. These new trends in yogurt have become the craze of the 90s, and joining us tonight is supermarket sampler Tandy Leblang, who is here to tell us what's new on the grocer's shelves. Let me just ask you first, just a very quick statement, the value of yogurt.
Yogurt is like drinking a glass of milk. The value is like a glass of milk, which means it's rich in calcium and riboflavin and everything you get from a glass of milk.
Okay.
And in fact, yogurt can be tolerated by some people who can't tolerate milk. You know, a lot of people have a lactose intolerance. And on some of these yogurts, if we look real close, there's a symbol that says live active cultures. It has an LAC. And that means that that culture is going to digest some of that lactose. And so people
so they can eat those, the live active cultures. Okay. Now, this is kind of a panoply of unbelievable color and new products and everything like that. So why don't we start with the thing that
all right, well, one thing I think that's real new in yogurts is that they're now targeting kids. And as you can see by this colorful sprinkles to put on it, we have these new ones from Trix. They took the name after the cereal, and I just want to put some in a bowl so you could see how bright it is. And I can just put it out here.
Whoa.
And it's this bright, and you can do that one. That is a banana bash, and this is a strawberry. I think they're doing it so that they're brighter and they do sweeter and more intense flavors and colors. I'm not real thrilled with all the food coloring that they're adding.
It's almost like bubble gum.
Right, and it's very, very sweet. But the idea was for, you can taste it. Strawberry banana, I picked your favorite flavor there. Sweet?
Sweet, it's not too sweet.
But it's just a little, right? I think I'm more concerned with the food coloring than I am with
I think so. I think just if you look at the color of the pink is so pink.
And if you get down deeper, there's actually a brighter pink.
The brighter pink.
This is another yogurt. It's a Yoplait custard that's been around for a while. And they talk about how it sticks. Ooh. Ew. Yeah. You could tell that we don't have food that color, do we? I think it's food coloring. This is so that when the kid turns it, over, it's supposed to stick pretty much. The kids like it because it's very thick. So this is a thicker yogurt for the kids. This one is a more colorful yogurt for kids. And here we have play yogurt. You know, Dannon has this new sprinklings where the kids are supposed to take these colorful sprinkle packets and take them and sprinkle it on the yogurt. Now, my problem again with this is why add these colored sugary sprinkles to yogurt? And that's a very good yogurt. It's moderately low in fat, and it doesn't have as many coloring.
Do they truthfully believe that just by putting these on there, that will really make a kid want it more? They've obviously tested it, I would think.
That's an interesting question because they've learned now that the yogurt consumption of 5 to 12-year-olds has actually increased.
It has.
So kids are eating these sweeter, more colorful yogurts.
And you think it's because of to find
You know, or parents are buying them and introducing them to kids. It could be a combination. Maybe they thought their child wouldn't eat it before, and you know, they might just eat a regular one. There's one other one that's, I think, interesting. It's Yoplait has this, what they call crunch yogurt. It has cereal or granola on it.
those in stores.
They also have chocolate cookies in them. I think the yogurt, Yoplait manufacturers had flipped their lids, putting cookies into their yogurts. Here they have this granola, and you just sprinkle it on and eat your yogurt.
And that's something that people have done normally for many years, to put some substance into the yogurt. I mean, I've done that myself.
I think the granola or the cereal crunchies are fine. I think the chocolate cookies, which we don't have an example right here, but I think that's going a little too far. What Yoplait just did, which we learned about, there's a brand new yogurt of this Crunchin' yogurt that just came out, and it's so new we don't even have a mock-up here, and it's called Crunchin' Yogurt Light. And what makes it light is they've sweetened it with aspartame, which is the actual chemical that NutraSweet is. And personally, I would rather have kids eat sugar, which is only 16 calories a teaspoon, than to have all these artificial sweeteners in them. So I don't think that's a very good idea. There's some others here for adults who are into fat-free. We were talking about how people like fat-free items. Here we have a new, again from Yoplait, a fat-free with fruit on the bottom. And that's, again, I want you to try that because that's sweet.
I have a spoon here, just so we can find, we want to find the fruit on the bottom.
Find the fruit. And what kind of fruit did I give you? I think I gave you raspberries.
You really have to, you have to glop your way. This is thick. This is also very thick. It's in there, folks. There we go.
And while you're mixing that one, I'll tell you about the other one, which is Dannon Blended. This is another brand new one just to hit the supermarket. And Dannon found that they had a light yogurt with some fat in it, and they found that their new one that was fat-free, people liked the flavor better. So they removed their light yogurt and they've replaced it with Dannon Blended free. I want you to try this one, because this one is also
with the
fat-free with fruit. Say that 3 times fast.
Fat-free with fruit.
All right, but I want you to try this one too. Again, this is fat-free. We'll have to, I think, use this one. And I think they're awfully sweet, because when you take fat out, you have to replace it with something.
Okay, and
they've replaced it with sugar.
With sugar.
They're, so I think that's an interesting and good flavor. But again, very, very sweet.
Oh, this is really sweet. This is sweeter than the bubble gum. That's what I call it.
Well, I think
this is very sweet.
Well, like I said, when they take the fat out, they have to put something in. But you know, if you're going to give your child a cup of Dannon Sprinklins or Crunchin' yogurt or any of the ones we've talked about, it's a much more healthy snack, even with the high sugar and the artificial colors, than having your kids have cake or something as an afternoon snack. This is like, as I said before, drinking a glass of milk.
Okay. Do you foresee any other things coming out in this area?
For other things in yogurt?
Yes. And maybe in the frozen yogurt area
Well, frozen yogurt's another thing that has exploded. But as your beginning piece said, that yogurts, we used to have a very small segment of the supermarket. It used to be a plain one, and no one but what we used to call hippies ate yogurt. And now yogurt is
health nuts, as we used to call them.
And it's very mainstream now, I think, which is good because Americans definitely need more calcium.
Yes, and most of the yogurt out is really delicious. The fat-free yogurt is delicious.
I personally, like I said, would try to look for some without
the aspartame.
The aspartame, and also with a few less added colorings.
Okay,
the artificial colorings.
Bonnie, great, as always. All right, we have a question. Is the customer always right? Well, our food fighters debate that question in tonight's Rhubarb, so stay with us.
Well, is it fair to say that the customer is always right? Food consultant Barbara Kafka thinks so, but David Liederman, creator of David's Cookies and a restaurateur, begs to differ in tonight's Rhubarb.
With the best will in the world, I think I have a subject for us tonight that you really won't disagree with me about. Which is that all the years that I have spent in restaurants, in the front, as a customer, one thing or another, that the old adage, the customer is always right, seemed to me to have a great deal of solid value.
In Never Never Land, you're absolutely right, but in the real life, people like me who are in the restaurant business and other people that I know are in the restaurant business do this because it's a business, and sometimes the customer isn't right.
Like what?
Like The other day at one of my restaurants, 6 ladies came in, they split 3 cups of coffee, and they brought hot dogs from the street, and they sat down, and they tried to eat their hot dogs at the table. The customers were wrong. I didn't throw them...
I agree that they were wrong, but I do think, first of all, that your maitre d' should have caught them before they were ever a customer.
Oh, wait a minute. Caught them what? Thrown them out? So are they right or wrong?
No, say, I'm terribly sorry. We don't let you, you can't become a customer here by coming in with your own food.
Good point, except they happened to slip in, they ordered the coffee, then 2 of them went out and got the hot dogs.
6 hot dogs?
6 hot dogs. But my point is that customers don't understand how, or if they do understand, they don't appreciate how difficult the restaurant business is.
I understand that it's difficult, but that's not really, I mean, you're taking an extreme case, which is, I think, fair enough. I mean, after all, this is an argument. On the other hand, I'm talking about the normal operation of normal customers.
Normal customers, I will agree, but most customers now, as economic times get worse, customers look to beat somebody. They get beaten up at home, they get beaten up at work, they go out to try to beat up a restaurateur.
You know, an interesting group.
Well, unfortunately, we as restaurateurs take a lot of abuse from people who think that they can just manhandle and/or woman-handle the business.
Well, you think that what you're objecting to is an attempt to beat the system, like stealing soap from a hotel.
Yeah, not being fair, exactly. People come into restaurants, they should spend money, they should be nice. If they have a bad experience, it should be corrected.
They may be embarrassed, you know.
No, but, you know, I'm talking about out attempts by customers to say that they got food poisoning and, you know, on an ongoing basis 2 to 3 times in the course of a month. I mean, things where the customer isn't always right. Most of the time, I agree. You try to make the customer always right. Stu Leonard has a big sign in front of one of his stores.
Well, look what happened to Stu Leonard. He was saying... I wouldn't choose him as an example of anything.
That's a good example, because he said the customer's always right when he was stealing from the customers, apparently. But my point is sometimes the customers aren't right, and restaurants...
You know, I would have thought that you would have said things which interest me more, and I think are probably more arguable from my point of view. Because someone's trying to beat a system, that's a petty grift, you know, it's not really very interesting, and that's not a customer, that's a gangster, that's a thief.
Well,
but what about the situation where a customer wants their meal cooked without fat, or they want their meal cooked without salt, or they want something special?
The customer's fine. The customer's absolutely right. What about the customer who comes in and...
Have you ever lost a cook over something like that?
I fired cooks over something if they haven't done what the customer wanted.
So you do believe, basically,
I believe that the request of a customer, if it's made in good faith, is right. I believe that customers often twist the system. They'll eat a veal chop 9/10 of the way through and say it wasn't cooked the way I wanted, I want my money back. I'm talking about in the trenches of the restaurant.
Yeah, but I have been on the other side, and it is very disagreeable, let me tell you, where a piece of meat comes completely overdone. You've been waiting for 35 minutes because the kitchen is slow.
And they send it back?
You sit down. I come, and I see this. I'm the customer, and I have this overcooked piece of meat on my plate.
But then you're right.
And some kid comes over to me, and I say, I'm terribly sorry. And I'm very apologetic because, believe me, I've been on the other end.
Right, okay.
And I say, you know, this is inedible. I'm very sorry.
But you haven't eaten it.
Well, I might have taken a couple bites to go. Sometimes you cut into the middle of the meat because you think, well, maybe it's not there.
Barbara, that's a judgment call. There's a big difference.
But you know what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Because you can't tell unless you go all the way into the piece.
In that case, you're right.
Well, let me tell you, I get the same treatment. I get somebody saying to me, you know, that is what we do.
No, then the restaurant in that case is wrong. I'm saying that unlike the system that seems to work, no matter what a customer asks, they're right. I've been in experiences where often they're wrong.
All right. Maybe wrong sometimes. Venal is never good, but the restaurant must respond.
And restaurants must survive.
I think we'll change the tone. How's this? Is caviar really that good? Why is it so expensive? What is all the fuss about fish eggs? Well, when we come back, Bill will talk to a representative from one of the most exclusive caviar stores in the world, and it is beautiful. Stay with us.
Well, it's fish eggs, and it's expensive, but what else do we know about this rare and exotic pleasure? Without a doubt, there are many varieties of caviar: beluga, ossetra, sabruga, to name just a few. Today, though, we're joined by Eva Vega of Petrosian, Paris, a world-renowned purveyor of caviar and other gourmet delicacies, and she's here to talk about caviar, which is my treat to be talking about it. Nice to have you with us, Eve.
Very nice to be here. Thank you.
Petrosian has been in the caviar business a long time.
Very long.
Well, Just a basic definition, what is caviar?
Caviar is sturgeon eggs, but it's not only sturgeon eggs, it's that fine preparation. Prior to the preparation, which consists of pure salt, it is fish eggs.
Right.
It is extracted from the sturgeon, from the belly of a sturgeon. It is put through a sieve to separate the membrane and the blood.
Right.
It's put through another finer sieve so that you can still separate any other few particles that are left behind. At that precise moment, when it's pretty much clean, the masters in Russia add salt. It is at that precise moment, that crucial moment, that it becomes caviar. Prior to that, it's sturgeon roe.
It's sturgeon roe. Well, why just that particular kind of sturgeon roe from the Caspian Sea, from this sort of prehistoric fish that makes caviar?
Well, in France, there's a law that only caviar or only sturgeon caught from the Caspian Sea, which, as you know, borders on Iran and Russia, can be called caviar. Unfortunately, America has not applied those laws, and anything that resembles an egg, bait, if you will, can be called caviar.
But there's some decent American caviars. I've had some decent American caviars. I mean, I know it's not a Petrosian product, but...
Decent. That's the word. That's the key word.
Decent's a good word, though.
No, but we're talking about good quality versus decent.
Well, let's talk about some of the good quality things you brought, and then I want to find out, why, again, caviar has that so expensive cachet. Show us what you brought.
Okay. We'll begin with the forerunner, and that's beluga. Now, beluga has the largest
That's right here.
grain.
Give us a little tilt here, okay? The
largest grain.
Wait a second, where are we? Okay.
It's the rarest.
Right. And how much does it sell for, this one?
Right now, it sells for about $2,400 a kilo.
$2,400 a pound? That's a
no,
lot.
A kilo.
A kilo. Oh, excuse me.
So it's about $1,200 a pound.
That's still a lot, okay?
Yeah, but the reason for that, let me just add, if I may, is that it takes 20 years for it to yield its eggs.
20 years?
That's a long time.
Absolutely.
It's very rare, and it's the most expensive of the three because it's also the finest.
I want to ask you a question. You prepared 3 little bellinis here, right?
Yes,
Is that what they're called? Now, which is the most expensive one of these 3?
The most expensive, actually, these two are the same. They're pressed caviar. It's not a caviar per se. There's no sturgeon that's called pressed. It is a preparation of caviar. It takes 4 pounds of fresh caviar to make 1 pound of pressed.
Okay. And so what kind of caviar do we have here?
It's a combination of all 3. It really depends on what eggs are broken and cannot warrant the first-grade caviar.
This is what I'd like to do. Peter, floor manager, come out here for a second. Now, I can't do the demo and eat this thing all at once. What I want you to do is to take this, Peter. Say hi to everybody. Hi, everybody. Right. Take this, go off to your perch, eat that, and I want a complete, honest report on how it is later, okay? Go over there and munch. Thank you very much, Peter. Okay, so a bellini is one way of serving caviar. What are the real people who really love caviar? How do they like to eat it?
Bellini, I mean, you can serve fresh, first-grade quality caviar on a bellini alone, just very plain. Bellini and creme fraiche works well with salmon roe.
That's what Peter's having right now.
He's having pressed caviar, but the only thing that you want to add anything to is salmon roe. Beyond that, first-grade quality caviar you want to eat by itself.
That's the way I always like it. I like to just take the rare times I don't eat a lot of caviar, but when I have, it's a special treat, and I haven't had beluga for a few New Year's now. So I just like to take a little bit of toast and actually put the caviar on the toast, and that's it for me.
And it's for me too.
Right. Happy New Year.
Exactly. Except I do one better. What I do is I typically take a 250-gram tin and just dig in with my palette, which has a gold medal. Without the bread. Why waste the calories?
Now, what about the rules governing the care of caviar? From the time you buy it to when you go home, you have to be careful, don't you?
You have to be careful.
Really crucial. Explain to people, because you've invested a lot of money in good caviar.
Well,
what do you do when...
It's real important to know who you're buying it from, because if you have a house that's, for all intent and purposes, that houses their store on Brighton Beach, you need to worry about the contents and how they keep their caviar. Petrosian, as you know, has a very good name, and we've been in the business way too long, since 1917, to try and damage our name by selling somebody an inferior product.
So buy at a name brand place, but again, I still want to get the tips on what you do.
Okay, fresh caviar, which will not be overly salty or will not have an overly rubbery taste, because that will connote a pasteurization, which you don't find in fresh caviar. needs to be refrigerated at all times.
At all times?
At all times.
So,
So when it leaves my place, we put it in an isothermic bag with an ice pack, which will ensure, I mean, the ice pack, which is, you know what it is, will not last forever, but it will give you the time that you need to get home.
Similar to the way you would do with fresh fish. I mean, you wouldn't put a fresh fish in the back of a hot station wagon.
Exactly, exactly.
For very long. Also, what are some of the common, I mean, we only have a minute, the common mistakes that people make, errors when dealing with caviar?
Okay, well, fresh caviar, just like anything fresh, like it is now, this needs to be consumed pretty much right away. Air is caviar's worst enemy.
Okay.
All right?
Well, I'll help you out there.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. Don't worry. We won't have a problem, I assure you.
That. So it needs to be, once you get it out of the refrigerator. Right. So you don't have it sitting out. If you're having a party, the people are over, you're going to serve caviar, get them in their places, get them set, bring the caviar
out. Right. I mean, you know, this portion that I have here is 50 grams, which is about 2 ounces. That is the formula that one would use for one person. Okay. However, a kilo tin, which is 35 ounces, can clearly feed between 30 and 35 people.
Right. So this, and how much would something like this cost? Oh, we already
that's the $1,900.
This is a $1,900, getting down to
a 50-gram jar, which is close to 2 ounces.
And how much does that go for? Of beluga, of the best.
Beluga. Oh gosh, I didn't bring the retail prices.
We need a cashier here for you.
Yeah. I would say
roughly
$75.
$75. Peter, you had some. How was it? Quickly come in and tell me. I know that wasn't that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how did you enjoy your Bellini?
I'd give it a 10.5, and I'd like a little champagne.
All right, we'll have to pop the champagne. Thank you very much, Peter. And thank you, Eve.
Thank you.
From Petrosian, an excellent store. It's lit right down the block from me, as a matter of fact. Coming up next in our cookbook corner, we have a cookbook which fuses the rich tradition of Creole cookery and the best of American regional cuisine. It's Emeril's New Orleans Cooking by Emeril Lagasse.
Welcome back, everybody. I just want you to realize Gayle gets the kitty yogurt and Bill gets the caviar.
I did bring some for you, partner. Beluga. You can have it anytime you want.
Oh, thank you.
Look at the plate that I put it on there.
It's beautiful. You know, I love this. I love this. And you're going to love what's coming up next as well. Okay. Joining us now in our cookbook corner tonight, we really do have a special guest, Emeril Lagasse, the co-author of Emeril's New Orleans Cooking, this newly released book published by William Morrow and Company, Inc., sells for $23 and is available in bookstores nationwide. The reason this guest is so special is because he is joining our TVFN family in a new show titled How to Boil Water. Welcome. Okay, the first...
And beyond.
Yes.
And beyond.
Before we get to the cookbook, tell us about the new show.
Well, it is going to be incredible, and it's exactly that. It's how to boil water. It's from how to boil water to great tips, techniques, from the basics right on up to buying fish, to making salsas, to preparing great Sunday meals. A lot of fun.
So it
is a basic
and
great
simple
cooking show with a little humor, I may add.
All right. We have a little clip, I understand. I want to take a look at.
Just you in action.
Yeah.
In action.
In action.
Well, hello, Emeril Lagasse, and welcome to How to Boil Water. That's right, the show that does exactly that. It teaches you how to boil water and everything else that you want to know about the basics of cooking. And today on the show, guess what? We're going to talk about grains. Grains, you may say. That's right. Grains are the seed, the kernels of cereal plants. And the grain is a complete protein. Now, grains, they're a member of the grass family. Fewer than a dozen are important to the human diet. But those few are very important, providing about 70 to 80% of the caloric intake in less developed countries. And let me tell you, I love this subject.
Looks complicated, but it really isn't. I mean, we're talking the basics. You got to have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's food.
You got to have a good time. Food is meant to have a lot of fun.
I have friends who really love food who have been to your restaurants in New Orleans. I have not had the pleasure of being there, but I've interviewed you. I've interviewed you on the radio a couple times, and I've talked to other people about your restaurants. You really run a first-class shop. Just tell folks a little bit about how far you go, because the book is coming from that. How far you go? You make your own sausage down there?
I guess about 10 years ago in New Orleans, I started a few cooperatives of growers, and this thing has evolved and expanded now where we have 12 or 15 seasonally. We raise our own hogs. We have chickens and rabbits and ducks and quails, and all of our greens are raised for us, and of course herbs and a lot of vegetables.
That's the highest possible standard. Wouldn't you say, Gail, when's the last time you've been to a restaurant that grew its own food like that? No,
well,
that's really wonderful.
I want to be in control as much
as possible
of the quality as much as possible for the guests.
Well, that's a sign of a great chef.
Further than that. Explain to people what New Orleans cooking is.
Well, you have to understand that New Orleans is a city of tremendous tradition. I mean, it's been over 200 years influenced by the French, the Spanish, and black African cultures. It's been unchanged. It's fabulous, but it's been unchanged. And then it's evolving, and now it's evolving. And what new New Orleans cooking is, basically, is that respect of that foundation, but adding ingredients and techniques of other cultures into that foundation, which makes New Orleans cooking. And I think the biggest thing that people are confused about is, well, is that Cajun or is that Creole? Is that Creole or is that Cajun? Or is it hot or is it...
Why don't we do this? I have a recipe here. Let's go through the recipe, and if there are any points that it demonstrates what you're talking about, in other words, the
Sure.
new blend,
Sure.
then just tell us. This is a recipe from Emeril's New Orleans cooking. It's a chocolate chip pie with bourbon cream.
Gee.
All right, here we go. You can eat your caviar, as I explained. Just preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Cream together a ½ cup unsalted butter, 1½ cups of sugar, and 3 large eggs. Stir in 2 cups of flour and 2 teaspoons of bourbon. Any special kind, Emeril?
Your choice.
Little Tennessee mash.
There we go.
Okay, fold in 1 cup chopped walnuts and 8 ounces of chopped bittersweet chocolate. Any brand? Any brand you want to mention there?
No, you're making me hungry already.
All right, now you take that mixture and you pour the mixture in a 9-inch unbaked pie shell. Bake until golden. It's about an hour. Then cool. Now for the bourbon cream topping, whip 2 cups of heavy cream with 1 cup confectioner's, a quarter cup confectioner's sugar until thick. Beat in 2 teaspoons of bourbon and beat until soft peaks form. To serve, then you just spread about 1/3 cup of bourbon cream in each plate and top with a wedge of pie.
Absolutely. It's a giant chocolate chip cookie.
It sounds
soft, not hot, but thick and gooey.
Now, is this a new New Orleans recipe?
Well,
is this an old one? Or
no, actually, it's mine. It's a creation of about 6 or 7 years ago. But as an example, people say, well, how, you know, Vietnamese, Emeril? Come on, you got to be kidding me, in New Orleans? And I tell people, I say, it's evolving. What they don't realize is that 3 of the 5 largest ports in this country for fish is right in Louisiana. And 80% of those ports are being run by Vietnamese people. So why wouldn't that influence? And look, here's a little...
What do we have
Well, you notice I brought 2. I didn't want you guys to
boy,
fight.
does it smell good.
This is one of the recipes. It's a savory cheesecake. It's actually a smoked salmon cheesecake with green onion coulis.
Beautiful
It is simple to make.
Presentation.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Color?
I think the taste and the way that it looks. All right, enough of that.
Enough.
Does it meet your approval?
Excellent.
Let me ask you, while
I like
he's
that as
chewing,
a breakfast dish.
Yeah, that's right.
A brunch, Sunday
Maybe
brunch
a little
dish.
poached egg on there.
No, just like that.
what is the difference between Cajun and Creole?
Well, Cajun is the country version, the more rustic version of Louisiana cooking. And Creole is the city version of Louisiana cooking. And as I said, that the influences of the French, Spanish, and black African really, they really just kind of dominate.
We'll all be seeing more of you on this network.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for having me.
Sure enough, anytime.
Our pleasure. That's all for now, and thank you for watching tonight's edition of Food News and Views. I'm Gayle Gardner, sitting in for Donna Hanover.
And I'm Bill Boggs, in for David Rosengarten. Be sure to join us each weekday evening right here on the Television Food Network. Coming up next is Robin Leach, and he is Talking Food.
Alan Zweibel, original Saturday Night Live writer and Thurber Prize-winning author of The Other Shulman, says, "The Adventures of Spike the Wonder Dog is so smart, witty, and inventive that I had to keep reminding myself that I didn't write it.